Welcome to tonight's topic, which is why love your vagina. Hello to you, Diane. And Steph, hi, good evening. So I'm going to dive right in and first just want to share a little bit about myself and who I am. Oh, hello, beautiful people coming. So many people to say hello to. Really beautiful to see you all. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about what I'm going to be offering tonight. I'm going to talk a little bit briefly about who I am. Then I'm going to dive into the topic of why it's important to love our vaginas, or for the men who have joined and who love vaginas, there's stuff for sure that I hope will inspire and interest you too. Everybody here is welcome. And then I'm going to talk about some of the messages as to why women have so many challenges in loving their vaginas. And then I'm going to tell you a little bit about an online course that I'm doing. And then I'm going to open over to questions and answers. So I'm really happy to answer any questions that you may have about anything related to this fabulous topic. So just a little bit about myself for those of you who don't know me. My name is Sarah Rose Bright and I'm a sex and pleasure coach. And I have been working with vaginas, including my own, for 15 years nearly now, and been on quite a journey. The reason I got into this work was because I thought my own vagina was disgusting and not right. And that was the sort of gateway that got me on this path. And here I am sort of nearly 15 years later, and this is one of the biggest areas that I'm passionate about, because unfortunately so many women have problems. But it's not just about if we have problems in this area of our body, it's as well, how do we deepen our connection? So we're going to look at some of that. And I work as a sex coach, helping people to love their sexual selves, to love their sexuality, to love their body, to find their natural expression in that. And then through that also to help people to live their potential, because when we deal with any fears and blockages in this area of our lives, it opens our lives up in so many ways. And I've been blessed to see that happen in my own life and with so many of my clients and my colleagues and their clients. You know, this work is so powerful. So I want to start a little bit with why there's so many messages around our vaginas that aren't helpful. And I use the word vagina being the internal part of our genitals, vulva being the external part. So we could say vulva vaginas. I mean, it's amazing we don't even have a word for that describes it all. And one of the biggest reasons is that we have zero education, and having no education, you know, if you weren't shown how to drive a car, many people would pretty soon crash it if they hadn't been shown anything. And we just have no education about this part of our body, other than things like how to not catch STIs, how to not get pregnant, which is all very, very fear-based. So we don't have any education, and that can have a massive impact. Within our culture as well, you know, it's a very hidden part. You know, men have a different relationship with their genitals by the nature of where they're geographically located on their bodies, that, you know, you touch them every day in a different way. Women can go for a long time without seeing or looking at their vaginas just because of them located, just because of where they're located. And our culture is very much about keeping them hidden in so many ways. So, for example, you just have to look at the number of products around. If you have a period, take tablets and crash through it and get on with work and get on with life. Products like soaps and sanitary pads that have smells, implying that we don't smell good here naturally, so that we need to cover it all up. And so a lot of these products are very sort of shaming and can make us feel that our natural vaginas, that there's something wrong with them. We also have, you know, and our relationship with our vaginas is usually one of three things. We either have a relationship with, it usually comes with a sexual agenda, a medical agenda, or a hygiene agenda. You know, for women, our vaginas are rarely touched in or connected to in any other way. We've also got the porn pussy. And so you might have heard that expression, which describes the type of vaginas, the type of pussies that we see in porn. And it's very deliberate that in porn, they choose women's vulvas that have very tiny often lips. They're often symmetrical, neat. And one of the reasons I found out recently that they have women with sort of tiny lips is that it makes the men's penises look larger. And so they choose men with large penises and they choose women with sort of tiny vaginas. And just like the beauty industry creates standards and expectations which are totally unrealistic of how we should look and how we should measure up, the same is created in porn through this sort of porn pussy that's been elevated to be the perfect vagina, which is not true at all. And, you know, we see the rise in labiaplasty every year of women going to get their vaginas reconstructed. And, you know, you know, I've worked with many women who were going down that route. I was going down that route myself. You know, and I think if it's something you're considering, talk to somebody like myself first, because it can have real implications for our pleasure and our sensations and our sensitivity if we have parts of our labia removed. And our labia come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. So they can be tiny. I mean, they can be sometimes literally the size of a thumbnail. They can be really thin. They can be wide so that if a woman's standing up, you might actually see them hanging down, that they might open up like almost if for penetration or for touch, they would actually need opening. And they're all different sizes, just like our faces are different sizes, like our noses are different sizes. So that sort of image that we have really is something that creates a lot of problems around not loving our vaginas for many women. And a couple more things about some of the challenges, and then this is a huge topic in itself. We could talk all evening just about some of these factors, but also the state of our not just our vaginas, but our pelvic floors. So the amount of women that have problems with it, with, for example, tight over tense and tight pelvic floors, loose pelvic floors that lead to things like incontinences and prolapses. And I've had a small prolapse myself, which I'm going to talk about on a future Facebook Live. And that once women are a certain age or after childbirth, it's actually expected, you know, that it's pretty standard that they'll be experiencing incontinence, that they'll be experiencing prolapses, as if that is the normal. Or other things, for example, like heavy periods, pain, all the problems that women have around their ovaries, their wombs, polycystic ovaries. The list is endless, but somehow this has really got to be seen in some quarters as this is normal for women, that this is just what women experience it. And for me, it's not normal. It's absolutely not okay. The standards that we are setting for women's health are actually significant, very, very low. And actually, we know what a healthy pelvic floor and vagina looks like. And so much of the problems that women are experiencing, which I'm going to talk about on another Facebook Live, are totally and utterly preventable, which is what makes it so shocking as well. I also just want to say, finally, that the type of sex that we're having. So if you look at porn, or even sex in the movies, you know, if it's a heterosexual sex scene, the man they both rip each other's clothes off, and within seconds, the woman's been penetrated, and often very hard and fast. And especially with porn, that just gets harder, faster, and that becomes our reference point of that's what normal sex looks like. And that's just one way of having sex, and it's a very limited way, a very linear way of having sex, and there's nothing wrong with it. But if that's the only way, one thing is that can cause problems, and two, if a woman's not ready for harder, faster penetration, or a woman doesn't know that anything else is available. So I find that a lot of people come to me saying that they're not happy with the sex they're having and they think it's to do with them, but actually when we dig deeper, part of it is the type of sex that we're having isn't pleasurable. So why are they going to enjoy it? So there's all these things about how a vagina should be touched. If you look again on porn, if you look at a woman being pleasured, someone I know is looking at yoni massage videos on a porn site, and like yoni being the tantric word for vagina. And apparently the woman was being like really rubbed very, very hard and fast. And it's like somehow that's become the benchmark of what's acceptable. So slow touch, guided touch, for example, isn't on a lot of people's radar. And again, that's something I'm going to talk about because there's so much we can explore and learn there. So I've talked a little bit about all the issues of why, some of the issues. Hello to all the other lovely people that I know that have joined. Welcome, welcome. Too many to say hello to, but really beautiful to see you all. And so that's just a few of the messages that we're getting, whatever our gender, around vaginas, which can really affect how we are. And so what I would like to share is a bit about why love your vagina, because, or if you're a man, why you this helpfully help you to love vaginas even more. Or it may be that it will reframe what you think about vaginas, because you may have specific views and experiences that may not be positive for all sorts of different reasons. Because again, we just don't have any decent education, whatever our gender. So just to say a little bit about history, because there's times in histories where women's vaginas were absolutely revered, as something to be, one, they were seen as a source of protection. And for example, the vaginas, there's so many statues, cave paintings around the world of women's vaginas. And they were seen as things like, for example, that would ensure great fertility in terms of crops, keep protection for communities, all sorts of different stuff. Like there's a phrase it's a Catalan phrase where the fishermen would go out to sea, and the women would flash their vaginas at the fishermen, which would be help to give them a good luck sort of leaving, that would wish them good catch and safe seas and safe passage and return home. And there's an actual phrase in Catalan, I don't know the phrase, which talks about this. So there's many examples throughout history, and somewhere, somehow, this has shifted so that we have quite a negative view overall of women's vaginas. You just have to look at some of the names and things that women have been called and how those names are used. And so, something's changed. But there's so many women, and myself included, and many, many women in the world who are really starting to speak out over the last few years and really claim this part of ourselves back, and not just claim it back for our pleasure, but also for our power, because it's just it's just really can be life-changing. So I'm going to have a look at the comments, because I've got lots of beautiful comments. So I'm actually going to have a look at those when I finish talking, and then I'll answer some of the questions as well then. So why is it important to love our vaginas? Well, because she is powerful, and if I believe our vaginas have got like a personality, they've got their own wisdom and intelligence. And it's funny, because one of the sisters who I had a chat with, she was told she was having problems with lots of infections in her vagina. And a friend said to her, "Your vagina's depressed." And at first she was a bit like, "What do you mean?" But actually it just then made sense to her. And then she's done a whole load of healing, and all these infections have now sort of cleared up. So I really believe, on some level, that our vaginas have got so much wisdom if we spend time listening to them, if we find our ways of connecting to them. And as we do this, they'll tell us so much. If we're not lubricating, why is that? If we've got pain there, why is that? And there can be a lot more than just the physical symptoms. They can give us so much information, which can help us to create better pleasure with ourselves, but also with partners and lovers. And it really does affect our intimate lives. I've had women that don't want to be with partners because they're worried about what their vaginas look like or smell like, or all sorts of things, or they're embarrassed because they feel they don't know different parts of their vaginas, or they don't know what they like. So they avoid intimacy, or they just avoid, they'll get down to penetration quickly if they're in a heterosexual relationship, because they don't want to share what they don't know. And so if we really get to know ourselves, then we can educate and guide our partners, so we can share what we like, what we don't like, and we can listen to the wisdom of our vaginas, because I promise you, it's like an internal erotic sat-nav that we really can listen to, and that can really guide us through our pleasure. And if we listen there, then our pleasure really will never get bored, because when we come at it from a head place of what to do next, our pleasure becomes very linear. So if we're in a heterosexual relationship, it will be like, we start here, we'll go to breasts, we'll go to vagina, we'll penetrate. But actually, if we listen to the wisdom, not just of our vaginas, but our bodies can guide us into very creative and spontaneous ways. But it's like getting to know an instrument that we play. And, at first it's going to take time, and it's going to take practice. And we really need to create practice time to get to know our vaginas. It's also really important in terms of our health and well-being, because so many women don't look after their pelvic floors until it's too late. But if we have a good relationship with our pelvic floor, if we love our vaginas, we're going to look after them in a very different way. And then it's more likely that we will notice if things are not right, and we'll notice, so then we can respond more quickly to stop things happening, and as a woman who's had a prolapse, it's very scary when your organs start to slip. And there's some horrendous stories of women's prolapses that are really, unfortunately, very common that I've heard. And it's like, I really want to raise awareness for us as women to really look after our vaginas, because it doesn't just help. Our pelvic floor has a number of functions. I'm going to talk about this in another one. But the functions are not only for helping us to have, because it works with holding our organs up, but it also helps with our pleasure. It will help with our orgasms, but it also helps with our whole energy body. So, for example, in Qigong and different sort of martial arts, the pelvic floor is just seen as such a key support structure in yoga as well, that can affect, how all of our body is and our overall health and vitality. So it's really really crucial that we really look after it. And if we have had problems like, for example, incontinences, prolapses, pains, all of these things, we go to the traditional doctors, and often they don't have solutions, or we're misdiagnosed in different things. But I promise you not to give up, because there's so much healing that's possible. I've heard so many stories and read stories and spoke to women who've healed incontinence. You don't have to accept it as this is what it is. But part of it is having a really good relationship, and that will motivate us to do something about it. Don't be scared of it. Really seek support. And then the other thing is, if we love our vaginas, it really affects how we are in the world. When I didn't love my vagina, when I thought my vagina was something was wrong with my vagina, I thought there was something wrong with me. And so it affected my confidence in so many areas of my life. It really affected my sense of well-being and self-love, which was very little at the time. And so I believe that if you're a woman who's listening to this call, or you've got friends or partners who aren't happy with their vaginas, that if they find a route to shifting their relationship and to loving their vaginas, those effects will ripple out in all aspects of their lives. So it's a real gateway into self-love and empowerment and confidence, and all sorts of different things. So that's just a few little things on why I feel it's important that we love our vaginas. And I'd like to just share a couple of little practices for you around this. And actually, these practices are really relevant no matter what your gender. You can totally do these for male bodies can totally do this as well. So, for example, one of the key practices is just checking in with how that area of your body feels. Does your vagina sort of contract if you think of something? Does it expand? How does she feel? Does she feel juicy and alive? And if she doesn't, what would make her feel juicy and alive? So just start to have a little dialogue with her. It might seem a bit crazy, but I promise you, she can give you a great conversation. And over time, that connection really can build and grow. Also, just like checking in with her in the beginning of the day and at the end of the day. So literally just cupping your vagina. Just what I'd say is just giving her a hug, just putting your hand over your pelvis. And again, this is relevant for all genders. And it can be a really nice way to start to build a relationship. And then finally, look at her. If you've not seen her, I really recommend, if you've not seen her for a while, look at her. Because I say to people, if you didn't look at your face in the mirror for 15, 20 years or 5 years, 10 years, you would have a shock if you have a look, because we change. And our vulvas change, our shape changes, our pubic hair changes. And it can seem such a shock if we don't look. So I really encourage you to have a look. And it might feel a little bit scary at first, but it gets easier. And people often come back to me saying they're surprised actually it was easier than they thought. Or they come back to me and they just, they say it may be difficult, but they're prepared to do it again. And then it does get easier. And I would say when you look, one final thing to say is when you look, don't be looking at like, oh, this is critical sort of analyzing eyes. Look in soft eyes, like a bit like a soft meditation. Receive her image in. And that's a very different way of looking at her than just sort of staring at her, which we can very easily get into and be very critical. So just look at her, get curious. How is she? Where are things? Pleasure yourself in front of the mirror, because then you can see how she changes and what happens. So they're just a few little tips to help you to start to build a relationship with your vagina. So hello to all you lovely people that are listening and who have joined. So I just want to share very briefly about an online course that I'm doing, and then I'm going to answer some of the questions and share some of the lovely comments that are on that I've had already. So I'm actually going to be starting an online course in June for women called Vagina Life, which is a 4-week course. And I'm going to do a series of Facebook Lives. So this is one. I'm going to do one next week on why self-pleasure is important. And I'm going to do one on how we can communicate the type of pleasure we want. And I'm going to do one on why look after our pelvic health. So they're free Facebook Lives. I just want to share some great information, like I hope today has been some great information for you. And please, while I'm chatting about the course, which is just going to be a couple of minutes, put some questions in the box that you may have about anything that I've shared, or any comments or any resources you want to share. Anything is really, really welcome. And so the course is designed to sort of educate, empower, inspire you around your vaginal health, pleasure, well-being, and pelvic health. And it's a very holistic approach. There's really nothing out there like it. We're going to have a week about how do we love our vaginas. We're going to look at this topic in much more depth, and I'm going to give you practices and videos every week. Then we're going to look at empowerment and anatomy and pleasure. We're going to look at how we can communicate, how to get great lovemaking. We're going to look at pelvic health. We're going to look at different types of pelvic floor exercises. We're going to look at everything from vaginal steams to how to have an empowering pelvic exam. So many different things we're going to have a look at. And it really distills my sort of 15 years of experience into this course. And I'm really excited about it. We're going to have a webinar every week. We're going to have a Facebook group, and we're also going to have Facebook Lives like this where I answer questions. We're going to have resources, all sorts of things. So I'll put a link in the comments box below when I've finished. And if you fancy joining me, there's a special prize till the end of April, which is £175. It's a super early bird. And if you sign up with a friend, you both get £25 off. So I'll put all the details below. And also please join me for any sort of future Facebook Lives, because I really would like to do more of these. So I'm going to talk about some of the comments, and also if you've got any questions about the online course, let me know as well. So one woman shared, this is something that really gets me down, and that's all, and has always been like that. So I'd love if you'd like to, Chloe, to share a little bit about what gets you down, and if you've got any questions about that, I can answer. So many people to say hello to. Lucy shares that Hegre, Hegre Art, has some beautiful videos. Thank you so much. I'll check those out. And Erica Lust also has been shared by Claire Jackson. I don't know if anybody saw the Mums Make Porn series on Channel 4 recently, but I really recommend it. It was really great telly, and in that they go and do some, they go and watch some of Erica Lust's stuff. So she's a female porn director who makes female porn for women, and it's a very different sort of type of porn than the mainstream sort of McDonald's porn that we get. And so I'm really glad that I've got some lovely comments of people who are enjoying this, so that's wonderful. And the theory, Stephanie is sharing about the theory of the Rosicrucian theology that the Holy Grail, Holy Rose, is a vagina, the sacred life-giving chalice that should be drunk from. Wow. And there's so many references in different cultures to the sort of sacredness of the vagina. So Lucy asks, do you have any thoughts on vaginal ejaculation? And can I just clarify, Lucy, do you mean G-spot ejaculation? So if you can clarify, I'd just like to check that. Claire Jackson's asking about, thank you, hello, lovely Claire, how to look after your vagina during menopause and during this transformation. I feel the main thing is to stay connected. So many women, when it comes to menopause, because their vagina might start to change, or sometimes their lubrication can dry up, they stop connecting with this area of their body and they shut down. And that's the worst thing that you can do. And then you might not notice when more severe things are happening. But if you can, which have the potential to happen. So it's really great to stay connected and to do regular practices. So some of you know I teach the Jade Egg, which is a wonderful practice to do through menopause. Doing Kegel exercises, actually, I think it's more important to do anything that really keeps movement there Big fan of Qigong, as some of you know as well. And what's important is that we keep movement in this area of our body, because circulation means we're circulating the blood flow. That's going to help get lubrication going. You know, from the Taoist perspective, it's when we don't have any connection and when we don't move in a certain area that creates stagnation, and stagnation creates disease. So I think that's the most important message I can give for women around menopause, because that's a whole nother topic, and maybe that's a topic can go into. And I loved, Claire recommended a book in a group today called Grow Your Own HRT, which is how you can grow herbs for HRT, which I'm definitely going to be getting. It sounds wonderful. Claire said, Womanology makes some beautiful herbal infused massage oils. I've seen them. I'm going to get some because they look divine. Really great that you're enjoying this, for the people who've commented on that. Lovely to see all of these names and faces, so many to mention. And I've got a few new comments coming. So someone asking about, they've been told by, it's Jane, been told by a healer and clairvoyant they need to detox the vagina and use herbs and healings. A point of reference would be good. So the first thing I would recommend, Jane, is yoni steaming. And I've got someone I'm going to do, I really like to do some Facebook Lives on, and speak to a good herbalist around this. I can give you a name of one in Wirral who's amazing. But the first point I would say with that and detoxing the vagina is that's the whole purpose of a vaginal steam. And for those of you who don't know what a vaginal steam is, it's where herbs are warmed up and heated and you sit over them, and the heat from the steam, the herbs rise, which really helps to cleanse the tissues, the muscles, and not just the physical part of the vagina, but also energetically as well. It can help to just really clean out things, because we can have bits of sort of vaginal blood, that things like that kind of get stuck inside. So just really can help clean out. There's so many benefits to it. So I would say that's a really great starting point, Jane. And Bex asked the time and date of the course. Great. It's going to be 7 o'clock on a Tuesday, starting the 11th of June, for 4 Tuesdays. And I'll put the link, Kelly, in this information as well. So Lucy's asked, with regard to female ejaculation, should it be a goal? Just a beautiful experience, and thoughts on it losing your energy. Great questions, Lucy. So I would say there's a lot in the moment in the media and around, you know, women being multi-orgasmic, and that you should have all these different types of orgasms. And what I find is that women are coming up to me saying that I'm not having these different types of orgasms, you know, and they feel that they are not good enough. They feel ashamed around it, all sorts of different things. So I would say that to have the goal of female, for most of us, if we think about pleasure in terms of like broadband bandwidth, we've got like a 32 meg of broadband, and we go up to 64, 72 infinite. Most of us are experiencing our pleasure like this. And I say the biggest goal that we can focus on is just enjoying pleasure and experiencing more pleasure. There's always more pleasure to experience in the moment. And we can do that by using a lot of the tools. I'll put a little video I've done around this called Your Erotic Toolkit, little 10-minute video in the link below. And just by using things like breath, sound, and movement, we can start to experience more pleasure. Because when we've got a goal, we're always thinking ahead, and we're not fully present because our focus is on the goal. And so let's let go of the goal, and let's try and enjoy the moment. Let that be the goal. Enjoying pleasure, no matter how little or how big the pleasure is, enjoying it, and how we can deepen into that experience. So that's my feeling. I haven't heard of female ejaculation in terms of losing energy. Excuse me 1 second. In terms of the Taoist perspective, they believe that the teachings are that men lose their energy through ejaculation. And they advise men to, if not to stop ejaculating, at least to limit how many times they ejaculate. Whereas for women, we lose our energy through our menstrual cycle. So if we're having a week of heavy or 2 weeks of periods, which some women do experience, you're going to be losing a lot of energy. And so if you can reduce the length of your periods and the pains and different things, you're going to have a lot more life force back. I think what I notice around orgasms is the difference is between if we have a tension-based orgasm to a relaxed orgasm. If we have a tension-based orgasm, then I certainly find that I'm more I can feel depleted afterwards, where if I have a very relaxed orgasm and my body really opens and it's very expansive and more full body, then I don't get that depletion afterwards. So I just say play around and explore. And for a lot of women, their G spots are quite, they're like they're lying dormant. It needs time and attention to wake it up. So really be patient with it as well. So I hope that answers the question. Thank you, Kelly, for posting the link. Oh, Kate Lambert's done a great video on yoni steaming. Kate, I don't know if you'd be open to posting it on this thread for everybody to have a look at. That would be amazing. The site for Porn for Mums, Lucy, it's a Channel 4 program called Mums Make Porn. It was a 3-part series that's just come out recently. Really great. I really recommend it. Andrea is saying yoni is the gateway to the void and many mysteries once we know how to reconnect. Absolutely, she is a magical portal. Any other questions? So that's all the questions that I've got. So I hope that helps. I've sort of whizzed through some of them because I'm also conscious of your time and this beautiful spring evening. So I hope that has given you some food for thought on why we should love our vaginas, and for the men on the call who love vaginas, to have some more awareness of some of the issues that some of the women in your life might be experiencing, because a lot of this is really taboo and unspoken. And, you know, one of my missions is to speak some of this because it gives us permission to go, gosh, no wonder I'm having a hard time with some of this. Or it gives us inspiration to feel more empowered to go and find ways to heal if we've got any physical conditions, or to go and seek ways to experience more pleasure and to inform and educate our partners to learn about our bodies and our pleasure. So I really encourage that. And please feel free to answer. If you're listening to this call after the live recording and you want to post some questions, please feel free to, because I'm really happy to answer. And just, is there any more questions? Eliza said about her G-zone. Oh, like that G-zone, because it's not a spot, the G-spot. It's not a spot. The clitoris is a spot. You're either on it or you're not. Some people call the G-spot a G-crest now, but I haven't heard of G-zone. I like it. And Claire's asking about erotic yoga. I'm having to postpone the one in April, but I'm going to be doing some more, and I'm going to be doing some videos, and there'll be some erotic yoga as part of this course that I'm doing as well. So I'm going to do the next Facebook Live 7 o'clock Wednesday next week, and it's going to be on why self-pleasure. It's aimed at women, but actually there's going to be a lot of stuff in here for men as well, so and for all genders. So please feel free to join and spread the word. I've had a great time it's a great privilege to share this information with you, and thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much for the support I've had doing this as well. It's been really fabulous. And also, if you're not on my mailing list, if you stick your email below or you message me privately, then I'm really happy to add you to my mailing list. And hi Pradeep, yeah, great knowledge for men too. Absolutely, really, it really is. So I'm really glad that so many men have joined this topic as well, and joined this call tonight, because you're so welcome. One last comment I'm going to do, just people saying thank you. So on that note, I'll say thank you too, and good night. But please keep your questions coming. I will check the thread over the coming days. I'm really happy to answer any questions that you may have as well. And other than that, wishing you a lovely night, and hope to see you next week at 7. Take care. Bye.